Okay, so I know that the Mets won today, but I'll tell you, I am so beyond questioning this team of what they do day in and day out that I'm really just close to just going full on Ricky Gervais and just brutally insulting them because I think that might just help me laugh the pain away. And you know what? I don't really know what to do at this point with this team because they're just ridiculous to watch on a daily basis. But other than that, let's get this thing started. Of course, episode number 52 of the Mets Weekly Podcast, Mets Giants series recap, live at this very moment on YouTube and on X. Let's get this one started. Okay, so for those of you who are watching right now live, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel for this very podcast that gets recorded live now every single Sunday and Thursday following every single series of games. For those of you who are watching on playback, want to join the live conversation, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we do go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you guys know that we love reading your comments. We love reading your questions, your concerns. And if you feel like they are getting ignored, they are not. They will just be starred throughout the show, and we will try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going of the live show. And also make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which features mainly our co-host, Frank About Sports, who is not here today. His instant reactions after every single Mets game, titled the Mets Frankly Podcast. Now, for those of you in here, Ken, what is going on? See, he's talking about Alonso. We'll get into him, of course. Let's go Mets, as Lane Kerner is in the chat right here. So we got tons of people already. We got about 20, 25 people already watching us live. So I've got Rode next to me. It's just the two of us today. And let's just say this team
Let's get it.
has been... It's been quite the journey, let's just say that.
Dude,
and
it
pretty much goes... Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, you look at below us, for those of you who are listening or watching on playback, you look below us, it says that the Mets continue to find ways to lose. They continue to find new ways to lose. Now, they may have won today, but I'm going to say it with the same mindset of 2 episodes ago. I don't really care because the problems are still massively glaring for this team going forward. Rode, what are you seeing as besides, just blowing this entire team up? What are you seeing on the field?
Well, Cars, I'll tell you what you're not seeing. You're not seeing the power of friendship that this team is displaying right now. This win today, dude, they're listening to Don't Stop Believing before the game. People are making compilations of this game with dude, this team might be back. Like, I'm not even trolling. Like, dude, there's one team every year that with the power of friendship comes back and wins. And if we go on a winning streak after this game, it is happening. But if I'm being objective about this team, and if you follow the Twitter or anything, I'm very vocal that I think this team needs a complete overhaul. It needs to literally blow up the roster. It's no disrespect to the guys on the team personally. I'm sure Starlin Marte is a great guy. I'm sure I know Pete Alonso is a great guy. I'm not sure everyone on this channel would agree with that. But I certainly think he's a good guy. But the Mets, the Mets, man, the Mets are, the ways we have been losing, have made me laugh. I've been laughing my ass off watching this team. They've been incredibly entertaining lately, and I have to give them credit there.
In the wrong way.
I cannot wait to tune into the game tomorrow. Do we play tomorrow? I think. Do we play the Dodgers tomorrow?
We do play the Dodgers tomorrow.
I cannot wait to watch that. That'll be very entertaining. Hopefully the power of friendship takes over. Because I would rather win than lose. But if we're, I deep down don't believe in this team. unfortunately. But you know, it's been an entertaining week of baseball that we've been losing in.
Yeah, I think that it's just a constant comedy of errors. And I know that a lot of people want to point fingers at certain players, and they have every right to. I really believe that because, you know, the stars of the team, it's a very top heavy roster. You need those guys to come through, such as Alonso, such as Nimmo, such as Lindor, JD Martinez. And you really just have not had that timely hitting, that timely fielding, that timely pitching. Like none of it has really come at the right time. We have had a lot of great performances individually in these areas, but all together as a whole, putting it together has been a massive, massive issue. And I asked in the chat, guys, for those of you who are watching live on YouTube, it's the best way to communicate with us, even though you can watch on Twitter as well. I did put a poll in on the YouTube chat asking of which aspect of the game do you believe is the root of the Mets' struggles in 2024. The reason why I asked that is because it's a very polarizing question, because every single game it seems like something else is the problem, whether it is the starting pitching not going the distance, whether it is the relief pitching blowing up, led by the struggles of the comeback of Edwin Diaz, whether it is the hitting getting completely carved up or not showing up for 90% of the game, or one guy in the lineup just hitting and that's it, whether it's the defense screwing up, the base running screwing up. It has just been a constant comedy of errors. And we talked about this a lot last year when it started to happen of they can't put this all together. They can't balance any of this stuff out in one game, that it becomes very impossible to win. And that sprouts the one conclusion, that this is not a good baseball team. And I think we can really just establish that at this current moment. And it's just they just continue to find ways to lose. They continue to find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And it really is just very frustrating to watch.
It's just, I mean, this team, like the fact that we are, what's our record? 22-30. Is that a record now? 23-30.
I believe it's 22-30. I have it as 23-30 on the standings, and then in the wild card I have it at 22-30. Whoopsie.
We're 8 games below.
I'll fix that. That's one thing for everybody.
We're 8 games below. I don't know how this team is 8 games below 500. Like it is pretty, like, to me, like I'm very surprised that we are as bad and struggling so much as we are, because like almost all of Stearns' acquisitions have like been worked out to their like better than 50th percentile outcome. Like a lot of them are close to 100th percentile. Like I mean, like Severino's been unbelievably amazing value at,
and we'll get into him. He's been really, really good for us.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Manaea has been awesome. Could get more volume, of course. There, no one's perfect. Oh, yeah. Harrison Bader's been awesome. Like I know, like like relative to like awesome for Bader. Like offensively, he's been a league average hitter this year. League average in 2024. I mean, he's actually been above average. His OPS is what is it? 690. Like, look, that's not a good. That's not a in 2024. That is an above average OPS. And the value that he's giving you on defense, the value he's giving you, he can give you on the bases. Maybe not as much as he could this year because he has been getting caught stolen. But he is capable of being an unbelievable base runner, and he is an incredible defender. And he's hitting better than I thought he would. Like to say, I was like, okay, Bader's gonna come in. Like, unfortunately, I was expecting him to have like a 70 WRC plus or something, but like. He's a guy. He could become a real trade piece at the deadline that could maybe get us a mid-end prospect.
And he has been in the past, so it's not like he has been guys who have gotten pieces that have contributed. Obviously, it's more of competing than selling, but he was in that Jordan Montgomery trade, as we all know. Jordan Montgomery went to the Cardinals, and then he eventually was traded to Texas. I mean. So, he's been strung along with a few trades as well. And, he's bounced around a little bit. But I can say about Harrison Bader is that, he knows how to help you win in the margins. And I think that that's one thing that Stearns has really tried to establish this offseason with the additions he made of guys who can definitely help you win in different ways, whether it is getting on base, whether it is stealing bases, playing defense. It is definitely one of those intangible type of players that Stearns brought in here. The problem is that they were brought in as the supporting cast, and we really have seen the Mets' main weapons, whether they have hit better in this new lineup combination, we're still just not seeing it click the way it should be. And Junior Swingman really puts it well here. In the chat, he said he voted the offense because they don't play sound baseball to put themselves in a position to win consistently. That is true. And listen, I think that it's a very polarizing question as to what aspect it is, because it seems like a different story every single day. And
I mean, they're
now
hitting
going
home
into
runs
the
now, which
yeah,
is
they are
interesting,
hitting a lot
but
of home runs. It's just the
there's
timely
no consistency
hitting.
within
There
the
isn't.
three big branches: starting pitching, bullpen, and offense. There's been no consistency among the three. Edwin Diaz is not the same pitcher that he was 2 years ago. He's my favorite player. He's Carson's favorite player too. If there's anyone who would defend him, it's us. And I do think that, look, he's not a tradable asset anymore. I don't think he ever was. The second Epler gave him that contract, I think getting Diaz back was a big deal at the time. But it objectively was an overpay. I mean, it's the biggest reliever contract ever, and it's going to remain. It's going to remain the biggest reliever contract of all time for a long time. I think. There's a reason relievers don't get that money. Look, Diaz will. I'm sure Diaz will get back to form. I'm not sure if it's going to be this year. That the knee, that back leg is so important, and his command right now. I mean, just with his fastballs, his sliders, it's just. We know he can be so much better, and we know he will. But he's blown at least 4 games that we should have won. And it's feeling oddly like 2019, where Edwin Diaz could be the reason we sell at the deadline this year.
It could be the main reason. And listen, I mean, there was a different story in 2019 when they kind of went all in with it, because I believe that was the Stroman deadline, and I think they brought in a few other pieces or whatever off the waiver wire. I think that Edwin Diaz, just going mainly into him, because I don't want to spend much time on it because I think it's all pretty much been said already. I think that Diaz, we probably needed him to rehab not a little bit longer, but I think that he probably should have been facing minor league bats first. To start it off, they should have just eased it in a little bit. And I understand having confidence in the guy to come back and everything, but I think that there was a little bit of perfecting some of his mechanics, perfecting some of his stuff that they kind of needed to season it up a little bit. And for some reason they just didn't do it. And listen, I think that at some point he's going to get back to it. It's just going to take a long time. And it stinks because, this team is trying to be competitive, and it's not like they're trying to win a World Series here, but they're trying to remain in this competitive place. And Diaz is a big part of that. Diaz, you need your closer. It's the tale is old and tired. You need your closer to shorten up the game. And when your closer is not consistent, that's one of the main reasons as to why you just don't put yourself in a position to win. That's one of the main reasons. And listen, I think that, in terms of the offense, and we're going to get into it right now with our biggest offensive weapon, but solo home runs. And that's what we'll be talking about, where the Mets have really hit a lot of solo home runs. There hasn't really been a lot of timely hitting, but I think that if you talk about Pete Alonso hitting solo home runs or Francisco Lindor hitting a solo home run, again, that's the best offense that they really can muster, because they really have not developed any consistency. Any offense you can get, I mean, the offense has really just come at a premium. So I'm not getting mad that they get solo home runs. That's more of a team thing. I mean, you need guys to get on base in order to have 3-run homers or 2-run homers. So it has to be a collective team thing. So when I see Alonso hit a solo shot that means nothing, I don't think I can get upset with him. I'm just saying I think that overall as a team, it's just not clicking. And as a collective unit, they're just not a good team. I think that they have good pieces.
Yeah.
But collectively, as a unit, playing a team game, it's just not clicking. It just isn't clicking. But in terms of individual performances, I do want to talk about Pete Alonso as a whole right now, because it's been very back and forth with the fan base, obviously, with him going into his walk year. And we all know that, is it possible that he could be traded at the trade deadline? Possibly. Could he not be a Met?
If we're this many games, like, he's gone. He's gone. And if we don't trade Pete and we're in the same position, that would to me be, unfortunately, that would be a big slight on David Stearns' reputation for me, because I think it'd be completely irresponsible not to trade Pete Alonso. I would trade him even if we're in the wild card race. This team needs to. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Like, don't get. Like,
I get it. I get
winning.
it. Trust me, I get it. I think that we're just gonna say it like over and over and over again, and I think that, you know, at the end of the day, there are a lot of changes that need to be made, no matter what. I think that you can't blame anyone for wanting them to make changes, because since that 2015 World Series team, let's be real for a second, we have had 0 playoff wins ever since then. And that was even before this core came into form in 2018, 2019 with Alonso and McNeil, then Lindor joining in later. You know, we've had a good enough sample to see that this team can't win with this core. And I think that, you know, we'll see what really happens. But in terms of the value that you're getting individually from Pete Alonso, on May of the 6th, the Mets did bench Pete Alonso, and he was really, really struggling at the plate. It just looked like he was completely lost. Not a single pitch he was catching up to. He was not making good contact with like pretty much anything. It was a dreadful Tampa series for pretty much everybody before he did get benched. But overall, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, all of them were really, really struggling in that series. And then Pete Alonso comes back from being benched against St. Louis, in St. Louis, and ever since then, he started to look a lot more like himself individually. And here we're going to show, since benching him, why you shouldn't poke the polar bear. So you're seeing, ever since May 6th, Pete Alonso has definitely started to be like himself. We're still seeing some issues, and we'll get into that issue for a second. So before anybody in the live chat right now wants to jump on it yet, we're seeing so far Pete Alonso, he is definitely putting the ball in play a little bit more. There's a lot better quality of contact. You probably can excuse that to maybe the weather warming up a little bit, but I think that overall, the main number that I'm looking at that makes me hope that he will continue to produce, whether he is on this team or not, is obviously pulling the ball, using center field a lot more, hitting the ball a little bit harder. I mean, we saw the quality of contact from Pete Alonso really, really die down to start off this season, and it looked like a concern. I remember talking with you privately, and I'm like, what the hell are they doing with Pete Alonso? And listen, it can be a slow start to the season. It absolutely can. But I think that so far recently, since that May 6th stretch, I think that you're definitely seeing somewhat of that Pete Alonso that we do know and love. The problem is, and we're going to talk about this as well, Ken has referred to it, never saw a bunch of hitters with no approach at all. And that's been a really, really big problem. As we said, the timely hitting with this offense, mainly a lot of that goes to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, I believe, has like what did I think I checked it yesterday, a 705 OPS with runners in scoring position this year. So you're not seeing him be the main producer. You're really kind of just seeing him produce for himself. And it really, it stings, obviously. It does. It obviously brings out like this unclutch narrative going out through Twitter and stuff like that, going out through social media. They're like, oh, this guy doesn't come through at all. I think overall the approach with runners on base, it continues to be a struggle throughout the entire team. I don't think it just points to Alonso, but Alonso's the big bat. You got to go after him for that, and you got to hold him accountable for that. And I think that, eventually it will come, but my concern is that when it does come, it probably will be a little too late.
Probably be on another team.
Yeah, he probably will be on another team. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing back Pete Alonso next year after trading him, because I'm trading him no matter what. That's just me personally. He's gone. If I'm David Stearns, I'm trading him. But we probably should have traded him last deadline in hindsight. But Pete this year is a 67 WRC plus with runners on base. And that's oh my god.
Yeah.
That is a 568 OPS. Like, this dude looks
568. Jeez. Yeah.
He just is really struggling with men on base. And he really is starting to kind of feel like a normal Met, like, who doesn't hit with scoring position, who doesn't come up in the clutch. He hasn't been doing that this year. He kind of feels like he's part of the, what Frank would call a feeble offense.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back next year. I would definitely cash out for prospects to the trade deadline if he has any value anymore. He has been playing well. I know teams would be interested for sure because, he is a great bat.
Yeah.
I just think that, I don't know, going into next year, maybe this team just needs to change. Maybe Pete won't want to re-sign with us if we trade him. I think he's a great bat, but it really feels like he's part of the problem right now. I never.
I get it. And I absolutely get it because listen, I feel like at one point you do have to face the reality of whether you do like these guys or not, whether you want them to be a part of the future. I'm hoping that the Mets do turn this around and Pete Alonso starts hitting to the level that he is, but at this point it's tick-tock. It's tick-tock for a lot of these guys, and sometimes it's either it's go time or it's not go time, or they don't. Right now Pete Alonso has not had, I think that Pete Alonso has not really had It's hard to say. I don't know what I'm trying to go out here. I think he just really has not had that consistent production where he's pretty much all over the place. Whether he is driving in those runs in situational or bringing us closer into games or tying games up, or it's basically just timely hitting that I think that everybody is really, really concerned about. And from seeing how he has been hitting recently, especially in the month of May, it definitely gives me hope that he eventually will do it. But again, I think that it goes with Pete Alonso and it goes with the rest of the team in order to give themselves that perfect moment. And I just feel like this team is a little too top heavy to do so. I think that this team, they really are a bunch of overthinkers. I think that they are just, for some reason, you just don't see that continuity whatsoever. You'll see good individual performances, but they just don't click together. And Pete Alonso is in the middle of that problem. I think that he's been hitting better in that 2-hole. I definitely see more of that Pete Alonso, but again, it's just the timely hitting is just not, it's not it.
It just doesn't feel like he's the same transcending hitter, even when he is hitting well, because they're all solo shots.
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. Like he hit two basically all of 2019, but maybe hitting him two isn't. I don't know. The guys behind him are. I mean, JD Martinez has been fine. Like Nimmo's been fine. Not as good as they can be. It just doesn't feel like this. I don't know how to say it. Like a lot of the times I'm just really like bored watching this team, and it's like,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know what to say about them anymore. Like they've
Yeah.
proven that they aren't good enough. And Pete, I don't know, man. Pete's been feeble. I don't know what else to say. He's been feeble. And I'm not sure if he's part of the long-term future anymore. You know,
It's very possible. Again,
I know he's playing very well lately, but like, you need to have dogs out there. You know what I mean? You need to have guys who come up in the big moment. You need to have guys who have like like insane swag. Like you need like for all the memes about that, like that stuff kind of does matter. Like you need power friendship, which hopefully we have now after today's win. Don't stop believing.
Yeah, of course.
You need guys who aren't afraid of the big lights. You need guys who don't think about it and just go up to the plate and do it. Is Pete Alonso going to do that? I mean, he has in his career, but
he's done it before. Yeah,
Pete Alonso has not been like Pete Alonso last year and this year he's taken a step back. I mean, like it's pretty obvious. I know the power was there last year. He was not.
There's a lot of balance missing with him.
He wasn't close
to
2019.
Is.
Pete,
there's a lot of balance missing. Let's just say that.
Needs to get back on the horse, and he doesn't have much time to do it, or else his money. He's not going to get the money he wants. And he's not going to. The Mets, for the Mets' sake, for everyone's sake, we want Pete to hit. Okay, for the sake of whether it's us winning, whether it's us getting a good haul at the trade deadline. We need him to hit,
And listen, we are too. We love to look at advanced data, you and me, and I think that this is a comment that we get constantly about batting average, of course, and I think that we could clear this up a little bit because I think that it gets misconstrued as to what stats are used and what stats are valued. But I think the significance of stats is definitely it's just a constant misconception as to what can be useful in order to see that. And Yamid Medina, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is saying, for those of you who don't think BA doesn't matter, except for Houston, whose entire starting rotation has been on the IL, teams leading the league in BA lead the season in wins. Yes, that is correct. But let's just say I think that in terms of individual talent evaluation, batting average is not something that is really looked at, because when we talk about stats such as that, and this is a good conversation to do, batting average values every single outcome in the same value. So a single and a double are pretty much seen as the exact same offensive value when they aren't. And they pretty much, it's just not a good talent evaluation. Is it good to show the team's results? Yes. But overall, when you're looking at the team results of, let's say that they have a good amount of hits, or let's say, it's in terms of results. And I think that not every single result is going to be the main thing that pretty much is the outcome every single time. I think that, and that's the main reason as to why we show sustainability with a lot of expected numbers and a lot of different things like that. Again, batting average, if you want to use it, go ahead and use it, but you have to kind of know what the flaws in it are. And it pretty much just values every single outcome the same way. It gives you an 1,000. It gives you an 1,000 for a hit, and it gives you 0 for no hits.
But with runners in scoring position, I think batting average is perfectly useful. I think batting average should be used more in a split setting. Like batting average, in my view, I know there's tons of people who disagree. I would never use batting average to evaluate a player. Like a free agent, I would never use batting average to evaluate how a hitter is playing. I would use batting average only in a split setting, like runners in scoring position. Yeah. Because that when a secondary leadoff second, a single almost always gets them in. So I understand that aspect. Hitting with wrist will get a run in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's not great for an evaluation for future performance. It's only good to use as a split. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, most of this stuff is in terms of projected types of numbers, and batting average just isn't one of them because there can be a lot of batted ball luck involved, and that really just does not determine a lot of things that can be future production for a player. And, I think that it's just constant, it's just the constant result of, did he get a hit or did he not get a hit? It also does not really accredit towards walks, which can also help with a lot of pitch selection, a lot of pitch recognition for a lot of hitters. So, there's numbers for pretty much everything. And I think that whether you are in tune with them or not, batting average is definitely not a projectable piece of data that can really help you determine how a player could produce at their 50th percentile or their 100th percentile. It's fine, but again, if you want to use it, go ahead and use it if it's comfortable for you. But for me, I have no interest to use it, mainly because there's just a lot of batted ball luck involved. It all really just depends on these types of splits, these types of percentages as to where batting average is. And there's a reason why I call it the singles rate or the singles percentage, because it counts everything as a single. Every home run, every double, it just counts it as a single. And, again, it's a trip around the bases that helps you score runs. So, again, hitting for average, personally, not for me, not my preference for a hitter. And I understand that might upset a lot of people who are old-fashioned with this game. But eventually, you hope that somebody does understand. Numerous times, with a man on third, less than 2 outs, San Francisco would forget it from these hitters. And listen, I think that that's something that you definitely can I think that the situational hitting is it's a problem. It really is a problem. I don't think that the big problem is these guys are literally just trying to swing for the fences and they're trying to hit home runs. That is not what I think there is, because I can literally identify every single thing of the offense where pitch by pitch, they don't do something that is efficient with it. I'll see them take a called strike right down the middle that had limited break or something that was in the strike zone the entire time, didn't even tunnel whatsoever. I will see them, take inside pitches the other way. Brett Beatty. I'll see them, chase breaking balls out of the zone. Like, it all really has to do with a lot more of pitch selection and pitch recognition, which is just really a huge imbalance with this team. And again, we talked about this before. I believe this was last episode with the Till Mets Do Us Part guys. They were on that. I don't think Road was not here for that, but
I was not.
We talked about that, and there's a difference between quality of contact and there's a difference between just full-on hitting for power. Quality of contact has to do with whether he pulled the ball or he lifted the ball, whether he hit the ball hard. Those are the types of quality of contact. It all has certain things to do. It's not just strictly exit velocity. I think that's the main misconception with it that a lot of people look at. And there is one there is a stat that we do use called xwOBA, which can determine a lot of quality of contact. I personally didn't like it as much going on these last few years, but it looks like they're starting to incorporate a little bit more of pulled fly balls. I don't know if that has to do with like some park factors that are starting to mix up. Maybe you're also just starting to see maybe it's just April hitting I don't know
It
if it's
could be
just
a
April
short
hitting
sample,
where,
too. I mean,
yeah,
the Mets
it
don't
could be
hit
in the
homers.
short sample.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, where do we rank among homers? Like right now, we're 14.
Yeah.
We're middle of the road. I mean,
Yeah, middle of the pack.
We're actually
Yeah, it makes
tied
sense.
for
And
11th, but like we're tied
Yeah.
for 11th. We hit homers, just not. We don't hit enough homers. I think it's safe to say. Like a team like the Yankees, man, like they have 80. That's 5 above the second most, which is Baltimore.
yeah.
Like yeah, we got to get going if we're
Yeah.
gonna try to win.
Junior Swingman coming in here, and he says, I just see them going with either swinging no matter where the pitch is located and taking pitchers like Henry, Rowan, Gardner. I'm not sure who that is, but I would be sure to look it up because I love to learn about weird baseball players. But all I can say is that there just isn't an approach. There really isn't a consistent approach. There just isn't. They do every inefficient thing known to man with every pitch. I feel like we could do a film study of, a Mets game, right? We could watch a Mets game. Let's say the Giants game, this Giants game, or against like some typical pitcher that maybe they end up scoring 5 runs on, but it really just takes a huge difficulty for them to actually do efficient things in a baseball game. And I'm not saying that every single time you got to swing at everything in the strike zone, and that's not going to happen. That's not going to sustain as to where the entire team has a 0% chase rate. But as to what I am seeing constantly pitch by pitch, first pitch, they always take the first pitch strike, right? Always take the first pitch strike. Then they stare at number 2, or they chase at strike number 2. It's just, I think that with the efficient approach that goes on with power and quality of contact in this game, this is not the approach we're talking about. And I think that a lot of Mets fans are talking about it as, oh, they're just trying to hit home runs. They're trying to hit for the fence. No, the approach sucks. The approach is just not good.
Especially situationally, it just feels like they're get nervous or something.
I don't know. They get the yips or something, and it's even worse. They're like, oh, well, I don't want to get booed. So there's so much pressure here. I think that, again, you need these guys who are made for that moment. And, again, I think that I do get accused all the time of saying, it's just strictly numbers. The strictly numbers as to where I get, I'm not looking at things that can be like the intangible part of the game, the mental part of the game. I'm aware that it's there. I just think that there are certain approaches in this game or hitting profiles in this game that definitely can help you in these certain situations. Like, Pete Alonso should be able to, with his hitting profile, to match up fairly well against these high leverage pieces because he has the best recorded bat speed on the team. He has average pitch selection, which has gone down this year, obviously. A guy like Tomas Nido, I don't expect him to get a hit against these good pitchers. But when your main weapons aren't doing that, then you have a massive, massive problem. If you have the lower third of the order coming up against Camilo Doval, you're not really feeling confident there because these are hitting profiles that don't match up to their stuff of what they throw. Like what does Camilo Doval throw? He has like a 102 sinker or something?
Yeah. He's crazy.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. Can you rely on just dinks and dunks off of that guy? You're not going to sustain anything about that. You just can't. So you obviously want to have power and match up the power, but again, there's just no consistency as to where power only works with this Mets offense. There's just no continuous continuity. If you do want to hit home runs, which I love when guys hit home runs, I like what guys they hit for power because it's probably the most efficient way to score these days against these high leverage arms, against these big arms that are, and they're going to continue to get even more tougher because you have tons of young pitchers, young pitching prospects. Paul Skeens is going to be around here for a long time. Let's just say that. So unless he gets hurt by some magic thing, Tyler Glasnow out there, you're going to be facing these arms in the playoffs, and you can't really rely on getting hit after hit after hit after hit, little bloop after bloop after bloop. It's a good result. It's a good way to move the line. It's a good way to get consistency, but you can't rely on that. And I think that the Mets are trying to rely on that. They're failing because they're facing really good pitchers, and then they get in their head, they try to hit some home runs, they try to chase, nothing goes right at that right time for this offense. And that's the main reason as to why they've struggled so much. And listen, go ahead.
No, I don't got anything. I've said my piece.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that overall with this offense, it's just it's not really just about timely hitting. I think that it's more of just about the full-on approach at the plate, which has just completely gotten lost in the mail somehow to this team. And I think that that's really how it is, because the timely hitting, I don't personally want to rely on that as an offense. Again, in the typical postseason setting, you're going to be facing guys who don't make that many mistakes, where you have such a window of opportunity to go single after single after single after bloop after bunt after error or wait for the defense to screw up. You can't go like that. But I think that overall the approach is just not there. It's not the fact that they're not hitting home runs. It's the fact that the swing decisions are not there. The pitch selection is just not there. The pitch recognition is not good. This team is terrible against breaking balls. Let me just tell you that. They are terrible against breaking balls. And when they stare at these two strikes, these two fastballs, the breaking ball is coming to put them away, and you're going to get a lot of strikeouts that way. And you're also going to get a lot of ground balls, which they hit a lot. So it's just very, very frustrating to watch this offense. You just don't see anything efficient. And I'm not just saying by at bats, I'm saying by pitch by pitch. Anything else you want to put on that? And then we'll get into, no? All right. You're done. Okay. You've had it. All right. So let's get into something that has really been a bright spot for this team. And that being Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. These guys have been what?
Christian Scott, I thought, was next.
Oh, no. We'll get into Christian Scott. I'm jumping around here, so don't worry.
Okay.
But as for Severino and Manaea, these guys have really been, so far, keeping us in these games. They really have been the rocks of this rotation. We're going to look at something called the left and right-hand man of the team. Now, obviously, we still have had some struggles as to getting consistent volume out of these two. But overall, we've really seen them limit the home run ball, which were two really, really big problems for both of these guys last year. Sean Manaea obviously reinventing his game a lot more, going to driveline, and then Severino coming back from a lot of injuries, massive amount of injuries, and he had a lot of big of a home run problem. He had a lot of issues with tipping his pitches, and now it really has been something that he's been able to limit. He's getting a lot of ground balls as well, which is not on here. And overall, it's really just been a pleasure to see these guys pitch and give you quality. They've had their blow-ups, but 9 times out of 10, you pretty much have guaranteed that these guys are going to give you a quality start or something close to a quality start if they don't give you 6 innings. And listen, I think that the walks are definitely an issue. It's been a walk issue throughout the entire organization, but I think that when it's all said and done, without your number one pitcher at hand in Kodai Senga, and we don't really know what the future holds for him, you have had really 2 solid performances from Severino and Sean Manaea so far throughout these first 2 months of the season that I really think that there should be some props. And, we don't really have that many candidates for it this year, but I feel like if you're talking about the lone all-star on this team, it's going to be between those two, in Severino or Sean
Yep.
Manaea. I think both of
Yep.
them have been really, really good this year, and they've been both of them have been one of the very few bright spots of showing somewhat consistency 9 times out of 10.
I mean, Sean Manaea can get annoying to watch sometimes. His pitch counts are he can get himself into trouble. And I know that's something he really is working on. He said a post game today. He's been great.
Yeah.
He's been better than I expected results wise. I have been hoping for more volume. I think hopefully that's something he can improve upon. But he's been great, and if he continues to be great, I cannot wait to see what we trade him for, because this team is not winning, and at least in my opinion, I don't want to speak for anyone else. But Sevy too. I would love to bring him back next year, actually, after we trade him, of course. We trade Sevy, of course, like 1,000%. And then he's a guy who can pitch in New York. He has solid stuff. His stuff is pretty good. His command is kind of faltering a bit. The walks are, I don't know. I've kind of been transformed to the say no to walks movement, because it just the 3 walks on a pitcher's line just doesn't look satisfying. You know what I mean? I want 6 strikeouts, no or 1 walk. That's what I want. That's what I want on my final line.
We only got 1 walk from Manaea today, which was
like
good.
2 in a row, right?
But there was a lot of contact and a lot of 10-pitch ABs with him today. There was a lot of wasting some sliders, some fastballs he couldn't get over. I saw him, he just wasn't getting the cutter where he wanted it today.
His command's been a lot better lately, though.
It has been better.
His control has been better lately. He's going to opt out pretty obviously. So, he's going to be a rental for whatever team he goes to. Maybe we can package these two to a team that needs starting pitching. You know who I think we could package? Pete and JD Martinez to the Mariners. That makes a lot of sense. That is a team with incredible starting pitching depth. That is a team that needs 2 bats at least at positions they're not getting production out of, first base and DH. I think that would make a lot of sense. But Severino and Manaea, pitching very well. Hopefully they continue to pitch well, because we're going to need that by the end of July when we trade these guys. Hopefully we get a lot. Hopefully they continue playing this well. I've been happy. They've both surpassed my expectations a little bit, and I was high on both of them. My thing with Severino has always been, it's not about the production. I think it's about the health, and he's been healthy. And I'm starting to get confidence that maybe he'll be healthy for a while, because with a guy like Zach Wheeler, he was getting to his 30s and he had never really pitched much. Severino could have a lot more innings on him thus far in his career, but he doesn't. And now that he's finally healthy, we could see him put together some impressive seasons in terms of volume. And something that happened to Zach Wheeler. And Severino, he knows how to pitch in New York. He's a good pitcher. He's a good mid-rotation guy. He's not an ace like he used to be. He knows how to pitch here, and he's a good pitcher. And he wouldn't be too expensive. He's one of the guys I for sure would be interested in bringing back next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Manaea,
I think
sure,
that.
But
Manaea will probably be a little bit different. Yeah.
Manaea's fastball, though, his fastball is part of the reason he's so effective this year. Like, he has a lot of run on his fastball and his sinker, and his arm slot is really unique. Sometimes he can struggle against righties, but he got through 5 nice innings today. A lot of people, because with the arm angle, there is the caveat. It is easier for righties to see that right out of the release. But Manaea's a good pitcher. I've always believed in him. And Severino, I always believed in him. I'm really impressed with what I've seen. I just can't wait to see, especially this could be another seller's market like last year. I'm not sure how many teams are going to be selling or would be willing to eat money. And hopefully the Mets, Severino's going to have, $6.5 million left on his contract when we have to trade him?
It's movable. Very movable.
Yeah, very movable.
Yeah.
There are some contracts which, like Marte looks good. Offensively, I think Marte is much closer to 2022 than last year. Especially batted ball data wise, he's the best batted ball data of his Mets career right now. His expected batting average is 293. His xWOBA is 345. That's easily the best as a Met. So
I just
I'm
think him
really
as an
hoping to see-
overall game, he's been inconsistent. Just overall as a player.
I mean, his defense is
There's
completely.
been times where Marte has come through. There's been times where Marte has really showed off, and then there's been times where he's been playing with his head up his ass. Like there has really been a big piece of inconsistency with Marte, but it kind of gets lost in the shadows, of course, because you have the inconsistencies with the top of the lineup that has constantly been like this. And, you know, just structurally sound as a player, Marte has been a little bit of a headache. But overall, offensively, he does still look like he still has something up in the tank. On a good team, he still would be in that lower third of the order.
Yeah.
I like him where he is right now.
I mean, his bat is pretty good. Like
It's still good.
I think his OPS is going to look a lot better in a couple weeks than it does right now. And I think the reason that's so important, Marte's defense. I mean, he's getting up there in age. It's just not what he used to be. I mean, he's borderline the worst outfield defender in baseball right now.
Oh yeah,
which
he's
is
one of
kind
the worst.
Crazy considering how there was at a time like when we signed him that maybe he would play some center field. Because he had such a great defensive year in 21.
It's completely flipped ever since then.
I think it's important that he plays well because I think it's important that the Mets clear Marte's roster spot for next year.
Yes.
Because he's making $20 million a year. I'd be willing to eat a lot of that. If he's hitting well, I'm sure we can find a taker. But also, like you don't want a guy in his late 30s who plays defense the way he does in your outfield, especially when you have outfield prospects.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I really hope turns it up before the trade deadline. And he still has a good arm. I mean, there's some value there.
Oh,
He
yeah.
still has a sick arm. But
there's flashes. There's really flashes of
I like
that
Starlin
good player
Marte.
that
He's
been
one of my
for
favorite
a while.
players on the team.
Oh yeah,
But,
I mean,
you know,
listen, he has
I was
been
high
a
on
really
Marte
good.
coming into the year. Like low-key,
Marte has been a really good player. Like he's had a really good career, and
I wasn't
you know,
as low on him as everyone else.
know?
I thought he'd be like an average bat, which is what he's been. But I think he's shown that he could be more than that.
Yeah.
You know, he has solid bat speed. He's great bat at ball data. Marte will be very interesting.
I think that if you were, and I've talked about this before, again, I think it's time to move the guy to left field, personally.
Marte?
I think it's time. Yeah, Marte.
Well, what
I think it's
difference will it
time.
make? He's still not gonna have. He's still gonna have the same range in left
You,
field.
you
as right
need
field.
you need the strong arm in right field, but overall, like him defensively, he's cost us a lot of runs. He really like overall, yes, he has been okay there. His arm is still there. I mean, he's top 5% arm strength. I mean, he's a huge arm. But in terms of like when we have a lot of pitchers who have stuff that can be pulled on from right-handed hitters, especially Quintana and Manaya, lots of guys who give up a lot of fly balls. I think that Marte probably would benefit a little bit more into left field. The problem is that do you put Bader in right field? Do you put Nimmo's noodle arm in right field?
Bader's playing. Bader's playing center field. Bader's unbelievably defensive. This is my opinion. Bader's
That's
earned
the
a spot
problem,
to play pretty much every day to me. You know, I know DJ Stewart. I don't trust him in the outfield.
No, he's not.
I think
absolutely
DJ Stewart's
not,
a really good bat, actually. But you know, one thing that is confusing. What are we doing with third base? Send someone down already. Like, look, I think we should
absolutely.
Beatty has to go down. I don't care that he had the 112 homer yesterday. I think Beatty can. There's tons of components that could turn Brett Beatty into a good player one day. It's not right now. Defensively, yes. Defensively, he's great. Offensively, he needs a lot of work. And I think the way Vientos has been playing, you can't keep his bat, give him inconsistent playing time.
The only way for Vientos to get better at third base is for him to play it. Yeah. And I think that, you know, he was playing third base a lot in AAA Syracuse before they called him up. And now you're looking at it in terms of, well, he's back to being a part-time player, and then you put him in here and he makes a shitty play at third base, and you're like, okay, well, he can't play third base because you're not allowing him to play it. And yes, I understand that Beatty got that home run yesterday, but there was no warranted reason for him to be facing Logan Webb today. There was no reason as to why that should have been happening. And like I understand that like Vientos, we all know, has struggled with velocity. But we know that the type of stuff that Logan Webb has, he's not a hard thrower. We know he's not. But Vientos definitely, I feel like Vientos is just a better matchup to Logan Webb than compared to Beatty. I just feel like, I understand it's the right-hander and the left-hander. I don't give a shit about that. I care about the better hitter. But Logan Webb, someone who attacks the zone fairly well, he's got some movement. Mark Vientos can definitely, get under that a little bit better than Brett Beatty, whose barrel window is just ridiculously awful. Like, it's so hit or miss that when he makes contact, you don't know. It's either you don't know where the ball is going or he's just not making quality of contact at all. And I think that, Vientos is he has his faults. I think that, he's not a perfect player. But I think that they need to give Vientos somewhat a somewhat of a leash compared to what they have given to Beatty. And I understand that they're more higher on Beatty. Beatty was the highest touted prospect. I get it. But when somebody proves that they should be here and they're young and they have a lot of upside, you got to make the tough decisions. You can't just say, this guy was our first round pick. We believe in him. We still believe in him. You're desperate for wins. You're desperate for timely hitting. Mark Vientos has done that in this very, very small sample. And it's been very impressive. And it's not like he's a perfect player,
before Beatty's home run yesterday, he had the same OPS as last year. Okay.
That's how bad he's been. Exactly.
Dude, he is a 274 xWOBA, which is 25 points worse than last year. I'm not trying to disrespect him. I still think there's a good player in Brett Beatty. Look, there is a world where he makes radical adjustments to his swing path and becomes good. But, Vientos is a better player right now. And
he's a better hitting profile. It's just a better hitting
much better bat.
Yeah.
I couldn't I'm not even sure how good Vientos really is offensively because we haven't seen it, and I do think there's he's gonna slow down.
We haven't gotten the chance to see it.
The strikeouts are gonna come with Vientos. He's had some unsustainable contact runs. The whiffs and chases are in line with a guy who's gonna strike out a lot. But I think having JD Martinez playing with Vientos is kind of poetic because it's JD was brought in.
He gets to pass the torch.
No, but I think JD Martinez coming in is one of the maybe he has had a great impact on Vientos.
It seems like he's had a good impact on Pete too. It seemed like there were some adjustments that Pete made. And it looks like he's swinging the bat better. I mean, obviously, like we just said earlier in the show, if you guys, want to backtrack to that, for those of you watching live or watching on playback, but we talked about, there's just not really much of that. I don't know if it's the sixth element or the fifth element to Pete Alonso's offensive game that we're just not seeing it yet. But he's definitely had better results as compared to when he was benched at the beginning of May, and there was some describing things as to where JD Martinez he talked about he talked about kind of making those types of adjustments, and we know that JD Martinez, he's just a professional hitter. He's a student of the game. He really is just that good of a hitter, and he's been like that.
Hitter.
He's a pure hitter. And I think that, at one point, Beatty, I think that there is a good hitter there, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing that type of hitter in Brett Beatty. And, whether we do see some flashes, and we know that we can see some flashes. He's been great defensively, but overall, as a hitter, we're just not seeing it. And I think that when you talk about him having one of the highest bat speeds on the team, it's frustrating when you see him hitting like this because he does have such a very such a very adaptable raw tool, which being bat speed, but it's just not translating, and that's what makes it very, very frustrating. We saw it yesterday. You know, obviously it was more in the hitters left-handed hitter's wheelhouse. You know, the down and in slider or whatever. It got enough of the plate where
I'm
he was
shocked
able
that
to
he
put
made
it over there.
hit the ball that hard.
Yeah.
Like that was very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
And
That
he's
was a
able
very
to do
impressive
that.
move.
That's what's very frustrating about him. That's what really takes us to this level of this guy really just he has like these hitting tools, but they just have not been applied whatsoever. And I think that there's a deeper root to that. Personally, I really do. I think that there's a deeper root to that as compared to, you know, I think that, you know, and this is said by Ken in the chat as well. I mean, can we get rid of these garbage hitting coaches for God's sake? I mean, listen, I think that in terms of the consistency, in terms of the sustainability of what you have, you're not going to get that from Eric Chavez. You're not going to get that from even Jeremy Barnes, who I think did a pretty good job with the core hitters kind of establishing their power last year, but you still just didn't get enough consistency in order for things to string together from that top-heavy lineup. And I think that at this point, you know, when you're getting this inconsistency, when you're just getting from top to bottom, nothing's coming through when it needs to. You know, at some point, the Mets got to make a change in the coaching before they make the change internally with their own players. I think that, you know, I do think that a coaching change really is a need. I think it's a little too late at this point. Like, you're too close to the trade deadline. And I don't really, I think that, you know, the hitting coordination throughout the entire organization is just, it all needs to be revamped. And I think we both can agree on that. We've talked about that before, but
I mean,
you know,
yeah, I think
it starts with Brett Beatty.
Leagues,
You know, it really does start with Brett Beatty. You know, he still
Brett Beatty
displays
being
those raw tools.
Brett Beatty being
But-
as big of a Brett Beatty being as big as a just disappointment as he's been, just like it shows me all I need to know about like this hitting development.
Yeah.
Like he was, I don't know.
And
what
the
else to say,
same and
man.
the same goes for and in terms of results, it's been better, but the same also does go for Alvarez too. Let's not be real. Like, the quality of contact from Alvarez is
No.
concerning. It definitely is.
Dude, he's a catcher though. Like
He is a catcher.
He had a 13 game
but-
sample size of bad ball data. Like Alvarez could put up the exact same stats as last year. And
I mean, in
very happy.
2023, it was. I'm pretty sure it was the same thing, right? I don't know.
No, it wasn't great, but like he's at the catcher position.
I feel like
I will so take
here's
that. Like
here's the problem. I think that the Mets are. I think that the Mets, when they do have a good player, they do produce for them, and they are pretty impressive. It's just when they're not able to maximize them. They're not able to maximize those raw tools they have.
I guess, but like, look, Alvarez had 25 homers in 123 games.
Oh yeah,
like,
he absolutely
Beatty
did.
doesn't even have
I'm not.
25 career
But I'm
homers.
saying is
Like,
that I
like-
think he can be better than that, though. I personally
I think he
be
can
better.
too, but like at the catcher position, it like you can only ask for so
I get
much.
it.
and
Yeah,
he's so
I
young.
understand
Like,
it, but you know, but
I don't
for
know.
what
Alvarez
for
is
what
far
for
from
what
a
it's
problem for
worth,
me.
you know, the swing
We'll see
decisions
where
have
it
to
goes.
get a
He'll
little
come
bit
back.
better with Alvarez. Obviously, we need to get him back here first before we make any
Yeah, that'd be
conclusions
nice.
here. But you know, we've had some concerns of consistency with Alvarez so far in the major leagues. We've seen him kind of hit in bunches, obviously. And listen, streaky hitters are streaky hitters. Three outcome hitters are you know, they're a part of the game. They're a big population in this game now. But you know, overall, as a catcher, as someone who has again those hitting tools that he has, I'm concerned with this hitting coordination that is around this entire organization from top to bottom. You know, are they going to be able to actually maximize that? Because, like, with Francisco Alvarez, the hitting tools he does possess, Alvarez, yes, he's very young. I mean, I believe he could be a Salvi offensively. I do believe that. There is a possibility where he could be a Salvador
has had
Perez.
a lot of bad offensive years. Like
He has had a lot of bad
catchers are just
offensive
such
years, but
there's such a streaky position offensively.
it
You
is a
can't
streaky
really ask
position,
for
but I think
much.
that
like,
you know, if he's able to make a little bit more contact, more quality of contact, you know, it's possible you could see 35 from him. It's possible you could see 40 from him. It's very unlikely, but I feel like there's a way that you can maximize that with Francisco Alvarez, with how such a freak of a player that he's been throughout the minor leagues and how young he is. I just feel like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not as confident in a lot of these prospects reaching their ceiling under the Mets, and we really have had that concern for a long time. But I feel like there's changes that do need to be made internally in order for this to actually happen. And I'm really hoping that Stearns does that in terms of the young guys, not really for so with Alonso or Lindor or guys who they're established. They're established guys. Fine. You take what you can get. You know, they're good hitters. They adjust to major league pitching. But in terms of these guys who are still learning major league pitching, I feel like those first 2 years are very important to the Beatties and the Alvarezes and the Mauricios and the Mark Vientos. I feel like those are really, really important for these young players that I'm not confident that these current hitting coaches or these hitting coordinators currently can actually maximize their raw tools in order for them to grow into the players that they're expected to be as big prospects in this game. Like that is one of my main concerns, and I'm hoping that it does get fixed. But right now, it's kind of hanging in the balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't got anything else to say. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a lot to say about this next guy that I'm going to bring up here, and that being, I'd say, the sunshine of the Mets' young pitching. That being Christian Scott, who,
he's
as
the best
of right
pitcher
now,
on the team. Like it's pretty
he
obvious.
probably is the best pitcher on the team. Absolutely, as you know, compared to other than Drew Smith, of course, big
course.
loss. But as for Christian Scott, I think that we are seeing some growing pains coming across for him, but I think that he's handled them very, very well, especially for somebody who is a late bloomer in the minor league system, and I think that, he came on as someone who, maybe he was getting limited a little bit in the workload in the minor leagues, which I'm okay with. I like when they save bullets in the minor leagues. I like it. But adjusting to the major leagues, there's been some pain with it, but there also has been some really, really good signs. And in terms of his arsenal being graded out, I'm going to pop this thing on the screen and call it Attack to the Future. If you don't get the reference, if you don't get the reference, it is from Back to the Future. Great Scott in the bottom right corner. If you get the reference, let us know in the chat. But other than that, if you were to look at Christian Scott in his first 4 MLB starts, we are seeing a 4-pitch arsenal regularly as of right now, and he's kind of sitting in these mid 90s to 95 to 96. And, the main thing that we really do want to look at is, of course, the vertical approach angle, which is something that I think is very important. It pretty much makes or breaks a lot of young pitchers' careers going into, the early stages, of course, of how they are able to adjust to major league batters. And you kind of want it in that realm of -4 or 4 from a higher release point. But from the release point that you get from Christian Scott, that kind of side slot, that is very impressive as for vertical approach angle and a negative 4.14 vertical approach angle from that angle, obviously, which obviously going down towards the bottom of the zone, and not to mention he also just has a ridiculous amount of extension for a 6'4" pitcher, which is very impressive. I think that, overall, you can look at the notes at the bottom here that we have on the screen for those of you who are listening. There hasn't been as many first pitch strikes as I think there has been, but he definitely has been able to attack hitters and suppress a lot of hard contact. And it's been very, very impressive where one of the 22 sliders that have been put in play against him have been registered as a hard hit, which is very, very, very impressive. Of course, the opponents are posting a 267 expected weighted on base average, which is quality of contact, against his sweeper, which tunnels a little bit with his slider, as well as his fastball as well, because the slider is a little bit more of a cutter, so to speak. So if you're a little bit concerned as to where, you know, how Scott is going to do at the major leagues. I think that his stuff definitely bodes well. And I think that the fastball probably can be a little bit better, mainly just because of the angle that he attacks from. But he's definitely coming from a really good perspective. I think that, you know, in these 22.2 innings pitch that he's shown, you're definitely seeing a really promising pitcher. I'm not saying that he's a future ace of tomorrow, but what I'm saying is he really, really has been impressive in terms of the analytical sense. Rode, you can step in here too. I mean, we've really seen some impressive, a lot of poise from a young Christian Scott who, you know, very limited in his major league tenure.
Yeah, I think the sweeper location, slider location has not been great. The hard hits have come off that. The home runs have come off that. And also, it's important to acknowledge that vertical approach angle is really reliant on location too with the four seam. So he needs to get that four seamer higher up. But you know. Yeah. I like what I've seen. I definitely like what I've seen. He's shown a lot of poise. He's very confident. He's got great fastball specs too. His sweeper is a nasty pitch. I mean, 2,500 RPMs. It tunnels. It tunnels perfectly with his normal slider. And I didn't even know that his changeup was a splitter until he got into the league. But you know, that's great to see. It has a good
I originally thought his slider
separation.
Was a cutter. I originally thought his slider was a cutter.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's a bit too slow to maybe be a cutter.
But
he has
the spin for it though. That's the thing. You know, it's like
But not Mania. Scott. I want to see him work on his. I'm sure mechanics and stuff wise. The sweeper and slider location. Too many pitches over the plate that have made me hold my breath. You know, that's part of the growing pains. I don't think that's uncommon in any way. I think
he's a big arm side pitcher. Yeah. He really is a massive arm side pitcher. Like, you know, obviously coming from that right side, he kind of wants it to, you know, he needs to tunnel through the strike zone. And that's definitely been something that he's really, really emphasizing. And I think that, you know, it's more of I personally think the slider is a cutter. Like I think that it's a little bit more like it, but again, it's a little bit soft tossing as we've said, but you know, it just looks like it comes over the plate as to where it just tunnels a little bit better with a sweeper if it is identified as a cutter. But again, this is just, you know, water under the bridge. We're just talking full on nerd shit right now, but I think that overall
I really do think that he I do think he could be a top of the rotation guy for us. Yeah. I really do. And I'm really encouraged by the progress of a lot of other pitching prospects like Brandon Sproat, Blade Tidwell, Jonah Tong, others. There's guys who haven't pitched much in our system, like a guy to keep an eye on is Brett Banks. He had great stuff.
Yeah, hard thrower. Big arm.
Not sure it will start. Maybe if they stretch him out, that's a guy to keep your eye on. Tyler Stewart's been striking more people out lately, which is interesting to see. He has really interesting specs too.
He's still a 2-pitch guy, right?
Is he? I'm not sure. There's lacking of data there's a lack of data. But you know, the pitching. Oh, Nolan McLean. How did I leave him out too? I think it's
Nolan
time to. I really hope that they kind of just make him a pitcher only. I think that could help with the volume. Yeah. But you know, he's just coming out of college, right? Or was he high school? I can't remember. He's college, right?
I think there's been a
did he
lot
play in college
of
did he
impressive.
Play in college?
He did. He played at Oklahoma State. I don't know how much he did hit in Oklahoma State. I know he struck out so much in college.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As a hitter, obviously, but I mean, there's been a lot of breakout pitchers in the minor leagues these days, and hopefully, you know, they reach that level as to where, you know, a lot of these guys, their stuff plays. Like their stuff plays. Like they're not just like these Corey Oswalt guys who are at their 50th percentile. You know, they're clawing back to be in the majors or whatever. I think that right now you have a lot of established profiles, and I think that a lot of these guys, whether they become relievers or starters, I think we have a really good mix of it. I think that we have a really good mix of guys who can definitely give you length with the stuff that they have, with how they attack the strike zone, with the limited walks that they have. Like, we don't have many pitching prospect with like coveted walk issues. Like, we don't really see guys having a lot of control issues. We see a little bit of command. Like we've seen Blade Tidwell give up quite a few.
Sproat's control might.
Yeah, Sproat's given up a few tough given up he's had a few uncompetitive pitches into the zone, catch a little bit of the plate. It happens. He's a sinker baller. He's a big, guy that, things can bleed over the plate sometimes. He's got a lot of movement with his stuff. It happens. But in terms of Tyler Stewart, I mean, I'm surprised he's not in AAA yet. I really am. I'm kind of surprised because he's definitely been working the ground a lot. 53.4%. 53.4% ground ball rate. Strikeouts are there as well. I think that he's almost up to 10 strikeouts per 9 right now as a starter. And he's made 8 starts so far. I don't understand what's keeping them from doing that. But overall, he's really been impressive. He's never been somebody to really walk as many guys. It's just he's really kind of struggled with location. I know last year he was giving up a lot of home runs. Or not a lot of home runs, but I know that he was walking a lot of guys like in high leverage situations, and then he was kind of a lot of uncompetitive pitches were going on there. He gave up 4 homers and 35 innings or whatever, so it's not a lot. But he kind of would go back and forth. I know there was some kind of a consistency issue once he was called up to Double-A. Obviously, there's a lot more competition there, but
I mean,
he dazzled through high I. He's a
6'9".
huge guy. He's a lanky guy. 6'9", 240, something like that. He's a big dude.
I honestly think that he could be an okay starter. Honestly, at peak, I'm sure he can.
Yeah, I think that it's all really about command, the way that he locates things. But again, if he's getting strikeouts at the Double-A level, that's really, really. That's really impressive. Good. It really is.
Might as well promote him
soon. They probably will promote him soon. I mean, it all really depends as to what goes on with Blade Tidwell, who I believe, I think they should just call him up right now. Tidwell,
think so?
Might as well. To be honest, I mean, if because like his AAA debut, I think that's like a top 10% outcome, because AAA is just such a fluctuated level of baseball that, like, if you give up 2 runs in 6 innings, you're considered an ace. Like that's really kind of how I see it, obviously. And we really have seen him, he's touching 97 with ease. We're seeing some 98s as well. And the breaking stuff is really, really, really improved for Tidwell. I remember seeing him live last year with Brooklyn. This guy could not get a slider over the plate to save his life. I'm pretty sure he walked about 5 batters, and it all has been because he couldn't get the slider over the plate. And he really has improved the walk rates. He's really improved just overall control. I don't know about the quality of his pitches, because I feel like they dip in and out.
Who are you talking about? I got
Blade Tidwell. Talk about Blade Tidwell.
Tidwell's stuff is pretty good. It's pretty good, actually. Yeah. He gets good rise. He gets solid velocity. He's got a good slider too. He profiles more like a Pivetta type to me, mid rotation at best. I don't think he's an ace. But I think he can be very solid.
I think we should see what we got with him already. I think I wouldn't waste the bullets on AAA personally. I really wouldn't. I would give him, I don't know, 2 more starts in AAA, and then if he's doing well, you bring him up here. The same thing goes with Christian Scott. I mean, Christian Scott was highly profiled as like a big breakout candidate, but let's not forget Blade Tidwell, first round talent he was expected to be, and then he dropped to the second round because of the injuries that he had. And I don't want to see him, sustain another injury in the minor leagues while wasting bullets there. We might as well see it. He's 22 years old right now. He's not 19 like Jonah Tong, or 20 like who's that other pitcher we have? 20 like is it Sproat? I don't know if Sproat's a little bit older.
Sproat.
Actually. I think
Sproat
actually I think is older than Tidwell. Pretty sure.
He played in college like all 4 years.
He did play in college. So did Blade. Blade was in Tennessee, I believe. So
yeah, he was.
So yeah, I think that now is the time, especially with Kodai Senga out, to evaluate the rotation. And we all know that they're going to have to, reevaluate that. And Christian Scott is the first step. We don't know if Tidwell's next, or possibly Dom Hamill, who has struggled a little bit in AAA, but he's striking out a lot of hitters, Dom Hamill, which we all know he has a lot of strikeout stuff. But some location issues with him, and there's a big next wave of pitchers that we have coming up here, and it's going to be a sight to see, because I'm excited to see what they can do with it, because I'm confident in the pitching development now. I've definitely had a rise in confidence, and I'm excited to see what they can do. But as far as the Jose Quintana starts, as far as the Adrian Hauser starts, even Tylor Megill, if he starts to struggle again, you might have to start plugging in a few of these prospects to see what you have for the future, because you're gonna have to build this thing up again in free agency, whether you're competitive or not. Because Severino,
I think Sproat and Tidwell will be contenders to start. Yeah. Scott obviously will start. If Sproat can get in there, I think that's incredible upside. I would like I said, I would be interested in a reunion with Severino. So if you have Scott, Severino, Sproat, there's 2 more. Do you want to bring in a Corbin Burns, or maybe kind of buy lower with a Walker Buehler, or do you want to just get Max Fried? I would love Corbin Burns. With starting pitching is so expensive though and risky.
Exactly.
So
and Cohen has actually established that. He has established it. He said starting pitching is very expensive. I'm glad to see a lot of our pitching prospects, show out as they did in like that Rising Stars game. I don't know if it was a spring breakout game, Rising Stars game.
Yeah, whatever it was.
But I think that at one point you do have to see what you have, and again with pitching development, I think that there's like the first 2 or 3 years that are very important, especially in those lower levels. But once you start seeing them do well in AA, you start seeing them kind of get a little bit of seasoning in AAA. It's time to bring them up here. Don't waste these bullets. Don't put, the Joey Lucchese's in front of them. Don't put the David Petersons in front of them. Let's get them up here and let's see what they can do. And, that's the best way, I think, to evaluate it, because I don't think the evaluation goes as smoothly as people think it is in the upper levels of the minor leagues when he's pitching very well. I think that you do have to see them finish that development and see if they can finish that last stage of development in the major leagues. And I think Blade Tidwell is one of those examples, even Dom Hamill as well. Even though he has struggled a little bit, I do want to see Dom Hamill up here eventually this year, and I do also want to see Blade Tidwell as well, because guys in AAA right now, they are obviously just a phone call away, just like David Stearns has said, but also in terms of pitching prospects, I don't want to see them waste bullets on AAA hitters. I just don't. I don't want to see that.
I mean, Dom Hamill's walking 17% of batters. I don't know if that's a AAA thing, but that's just like unacceptable. He looked so good last year, but now, I wonder if there's some
he's had his
adjustments to be
struggles. He's given up a lot of base runners, but he's striking out a lot of hitters. I know that. And again, you get that hit and miss with him. He's always had those control issues. That's always been a thing with him. I've always seen the scouting report on Dom Hamill as to someone who, maybe has a little too much active spin on his slider, has a little too much for his own good. Like maybe he has a little too much spin where it gets him in trouble.
Could be.
And listen, I think that, that's one of the main things. And Junior Swingman comes in here and says that, he'll fit right in with the MLB staff with the walks. He probably would. But I think that, eventually with Dominic Hamill, you're going to see, I don't know if you're going to see him for a while because he has absolutely struggled, but these last two, these last two appearances he had, they were pretty solid, I guess. But he's going to have to do a little bit better than that. He's had quite a few 4 or 5 walk performances, so he's going to have to tone it down, obviously. But, there's still time. But I think that, if Tidwell continues to pitch well in AAA, he can jump him. He could definitely jump him, even though Dom Hamill's 25, and we probably could see him as well in the major leagues. I think that Tidwell, again, it's the higher upside, of course, but Dom Hamill's got some good stuff as well. And as for the Mets fans who are asking for Mike Vassell, I think that ship is also sailed. Let's just say that. I just don't.
Unfortunately, I don't
think that Mike Vassell is a major league pitcher. I don't think the stuff really plays there. I think that he's really struggled in AAA, and you're really seeing a lot of pedestrian stuff from him. And a lot of the contact that there's being made against him is loud contact, very loud contact. And that is something that doesn't fly. He's also lost a little bit of his control as well. Tyler Stewart, and again, this is asked by Douglas Barnes. We talked about this just a little bit. He's really been impressive. He's striking out a lot more batters. He's not really walking many. And, I think that he should be called up to AAA, and I think that Blade Tidwell should have the next call. And again, I'm not someone who likes to plug in prospects to the rotation or plug in prospects to your roster, but this is the evaluation year, and I think that nothing should really be stopping them from calling some of these guys up and, jumpstarting it a little bit. So the Mets have a 6-man rotation now, is what Daniel says. Fellow Raiders fan, hell yeah, man. But the Mets having a 6-man rotation, I think that it's pretty much it's a rotation of, I guess, 4 guaranteed spots with Severino, Minaya, Christian Scott right now, Jose Quintana, who's pretty much nailed down in the back end of that. And then they're kind of flip-flopping between like 4 different pitchers in like 2 different spots. It depends on the off days. So, we'll see. We'll see what goes on with that. But, once Senga does come back, if he does, I don't know if he will. I'm not really confident right now.
I think that he's a very big question mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would consider. I wouldn't even say not trade him or anything, because the shoulder.
You never know.
I don't know. Maybe we should look into.
It's unpredictable. It's a question mark. It's always been a question mark. With shoulder injuries are always a question mark. You can revert back to another guy that a lot of Mets fans have pounded the drum for, and me including. Brendan Woodruff. He had shoulder surgery, and you don't know if he's going to be the same ever again. But he has that pedigree again. But obviously, Senga has not had shoulder surgery yet. And for those of Mets fans also, I just want to give out a PSA. He doesn't need Tommy John surgery, okay? That's not a shoulder surgery. That's an elbow procedure, okay? So, listen, nobody on stream is going to get this, but I may be Dr. Kars, but it's an elbow procedure, okay? That's an elbow procedure that has nothing to do with his shoulder, okay? So if you have a concussion, just saying, you don't need Tommy John surgery. Just saying that, all right? Just for common sense. I was asking about a 6-man rotation because of how we spent our Her bullpen is asked. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a reasonable question, Daniel.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah, for sure.
because like the bullpen arms have continued to rotate in and out. We've had some struggles from Edwin Diaz, obviously. Brooks Raley has gone down with Tommy John surgery, which is really unfortunate. That is really a tough blow to the bullpen. Adam Ottavino seemed a little bit overworked recently. Jorge Lopez has had the wheels falling off recently. So, yeah, I mean, there's been a lack of continuity with the starting rotation and the relief pitching. Obviously, the main thing with our bullpen has been kind of just getting everything, getting Edwin Diaz right. I think that that's really just the main thing with our bullpen right now. And I think that they're kind of in limbo with that, you know?
Yeah.
And in terms of injuries, I do want to obviously put up the injury report here real quick. Kodai Senga, he experienced some tricep soreness before having a scheduled bullpen last week, and the MRI did reveal some nerve inflammation. He did receive a cortisone shot on Friday, and he has been shut down for 3 to 5 days. It doesn't seem like there's much concern, but overall, the timeline of his return, 100% up, still up in the air, and definitely coming towards the nervous sector of this year for Kodai Senga, who we definitely expected back a little bit sooner, or at least making a rehab assignment a little bit sooner. As I also said on the screen, Brooks Raley is officially ruled out for the season. Most likely has pitched his last game as a New York Met, and it's really unfortunate because I think that overall Brooks Raley has been one of our best and consistent relievers for over a year and a half now. And it really, it sucks. I think that's a big blow to the bullpen, obviously. At the end of the day, it's a pitcher's game, and that's what happens. Guys get those injuries. And then obviously the big one, the guy who's the closest to returning out of all of our injuries, Francisco Alvarez, who we cannot wait to have back. He took batting practice on Saturday. He is expected to begin hitting off of a pitching machine and facing velocity this week. And we still just don't really know what is going to go on with a rehab assignment for him. We don't know how long that is going to be, but he is very, very close to returning. As we all know, mid to late June is the expectation as to where he comes back. So a few weeks when we see Francisco Alvarez. And again, in terms of the pitching consistency, that's one of the main factors as well. I mean, Tomas Nido, I think, is a great defensive catcher, but he's good in doses. He's backup catcher. Today, he had a really wild throw in one of the early innings, which was very, very stupid. But Francisco Alvarez, one of the main factors as to why you've gotten a lot of pitcher consistency. They've been able to fight through those innings, and the pitcher and catcher relationship has definitely evolved a lot recently in this game. So again, I think, overall, Brooks Raley, let me just say this first and foremost. If this is the last time he has pitched for the Mets, I want to say thank you to Brooks Raley, because I think that he really has had a really good Mets career, even though it's been short. It was a full year last year, and then a little bit this year. But the Mets have not really had many good lefty relievers be as consistent as he has been. And we did make a trade for him, but this was one of the few Billy Epler moves that I was 100% on board with from the beginning. One of the best lefty relievers in baseball. I think we all can really establish that, and I hope that he has a great career from here on out. So hats off to Brooks Raley. This is the last time we see you in a Mets uniform. Thank you very much for all of your service here. Even though our team stinks, you didn't deserve it. But let's get into studs and duds, and then I think that we'll head on out of here. Talk a little bit about the Dodgers series, but other than that, we'll send it off. But stud this week in this series alone, obviously, there's been some bright spots, some tough spots. So one player that you want to give flowers to? What do you think, Rode?
Harrison Bader.
Yeah.
Harrison Bader. I love Harrison Bader. Harrison Bader is
Hell
my
yeah.
favorite Met besides Edwin at this point. Harrison Bader is Harrison Bader has the energy. He has the heart. He has the fight. He wants to win. He has that aura. He's
got the dog in him.
He's got the dog in him. He's the definition of the power of friendship. He's going to get us a haul at the trade deadline. Hopefully gets us like Brian Wu plus more because he is a top 10 player in baseball. Harrison Bader, he's got that dog in him. I love Harrison Bader. And he's been good. He got that big hit. They were listening to Don't Stop Believin'. It was so chills.
Yeah. The master Harrison Bader. Okay. For my stud, I'm going to go with Luis Severino because I just think that this guy has just been full on nails. 9 times out of 10, this guy is going to give you quality. And also, like, in terms of just positivity, I think that, and I'm not really a big positive person. I understand as to why Yankee fans like Severino so much because he's such an easy guy to root for. And I feel like we really do see his lows and his highs. You really expect him and are rooting for him to get back on that horse when he does struggle. Because let's not forget last year, Carlos Mendoza was also in that experience for it where he called himself the worst pitcher in all of baseball. He called himself that, and he was at his all-time low. And I think that he's had a great bounce-back season so far. And again, if we are in that certain position by the trade deadline, he is going to be one of those valuable pieces that possibly we get something back for him. So it's definitely been very impressive. He's been one of the stellar pieces to this team. Very big bright spot. He's had his blow-ups, but overall, you've definitely seen a good reinvention. And also, we're seeing him on the field. I mean, he's been healthy. He really has been healthy. Now, as for duds, let's get into this one. Dear God, as a collective unit, I'd probably put everyone as a dud, to be honest. But going to the specifics, who do you got as your dud this week, Rode?
Can you come back to me? Because Reed Garrett, duh. Oh my God. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Reed Garrett, I'm still a fan of Reed Garrett, okay? I'm not going to say he sucks. I do think he's a reinvented pitcher. I really do believe in him. I think he's a great reliever. He gave up 5 runs. He did 5 runs and cost us the first game. We should have swept the series, man. And I think so much wasted opportunity, as with this whole year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, there is a real defying dud as well. I mean, I got to put, Diaz in there. He did have a good 7th inning in the first game of the series. But there's just nothing there yet. It's just not there yet. And obviously it's the same issues we talked about two episodes ago. He's not getting the slider where he wants to. And then if he doesn't get that slider, which he prioritizes, everything else is going to be vulnerable. And even though he was throwing pretty much nothing but fastballs in that last blown save he had yesterday, that really hasn't been the problem in my opinion to that. I think that, he has lost a little control of it. The slider, he's the little bit of command as well. It's been a problem. But overall, I think that stuff-wise, he's still that guy, but there just isn't enough confidence. There isn't enough command. He's just not making good pitches. He just isn't. And that is really, really costing him. And, it's just the ball's just going directly into the player's bat. I mean, that really has just been it. It's pretty clear what the problems are going to be. Again, like I've said, but I think that it's just going to take a little bit longer than you think it should. And whether that is him coming back to 2025, whether that is him taking an assignment to get right, all options are open as of right now. And I mean, I hate to see the guy struggle. Obviously, he's my favorite Met. He's your favorite Met, but at the end of the day, he just has not performed the way we know Diaz can. And we all know the we all know the culprit as to why that. He's recovering from a very, very serious injury, and it's really been tough to watch him pitch so far. Trying to recover from it. I'm still confident that he will be that guy again, but it's just going to take a while. But other than that, Mets-Dodgers series. I just want to talk about this one on our way out, of course. We have Tyler McGill lined up for game 1. David Peterson is going to make the start on Wednesday. Whew. Oh, that should be fun. And then we have sandwiched in between it, Jose Quintana.
I'm a Peterson truther, personally.
All right. Well, I might have to kick you off the show on that one. No, but I think that, Peterson has looked fairly good in his rehab. It's been encouraging. But I don't know.
He hit 97.
But,
he almost hit 98.
He did hit 97, but it doesn't look like there's much changes as to all the data I'm looking at. There doesn't seem to be much changes from last year, and last year there was definitely a lot of concern. So I don't know. I think that it's either he's an ace or he's the greatest pitcher alive. But Tyler McGill
for sure.
This is a big matchup for him, McGill. And we'll see if we can get some strikeout stuff from him, because overall I think the stuff has looked better. It looks more refined. There's still some things he's got to work out. But overall, this is going to be a really, really big test for him. And you're facing Stone, Glasnow, and James Paxton, all pretty decent pitchers. So we'll see what happens here. But the star power is definitely there with the Dodgers. We know it. They're on a little bit of a skid. But, we'll see how they fare well, of course. Obviously, I'm looking a little bit more at the individual performances of guys we're evaluating internally as of right now until they somehow get back in this race, because right now, they are dead in the water. So hopefully they play better.
With Harrison Bader, I think
believe.
Don't stop believing. But dude, Journey, this team is back. I'm telling you.
Oh my God,
we're back.
All right, well, that's the continuation of the train of torture known as the New York Mets. But other than that, we'll see you guys next time. For episode number 53 for the series recap of the Mets-Dodgers series. And make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Turn on your post notifications to know when we go live, of course. And also follow us on TikTok, Twitter, all of that good stuff. The links are in the description. And thank you guys for those of you who joined us live. For those of you joining on playback later in the comments section, I'm sure we'll be able to interact with you guys there. And for those of you listening here, make sure to follow in all platforms that you please. So more to come, obviously, as the Mets season continues to be quite the roller coaster. It will be quite the roller coaster over here. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Let's go Mets, and peace out, everyone. We'll see you guys next time.